Hey there, it's Olivia Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I'm here to give you a big book haul. Since I've come to the UK, it's been a bit intense with new books. Let's get right down to the books. So the first two books I have are some lovely gifts from some lovely people. The first one is Rise to the Sun by Leah Johnson, and this was gifted to me by Tracy from Bookie Tracy, who is on Instagram, and it was just so lovely of her to send this to me as a welcome to UK and congratulations on your new job book. And I'm so excited to read this one. I read You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson earlier this year, and I absolutely loved it. It was just the perfect book of black joy that I needed when I read it, and I'm so excited to read this other one by her. It's another black joy book. It's another FF romance. One of the main characters is called Olivia. You know, what more could you want? And I'm just so excited to go in and give this book a chance. The second gift that I got is from my good friend Taylor from Iridescent Blaze on Instagram. We've known each other since my writing days on YWS, and she gifted me a few books in my last haul, and actually this came with those books, but it arrived all mashed up and I had to get a refund, and I reordered it when I got here to the UK because I was in the process of moving and didn't want it to come too late. But now I finally have in my hands Monstress Volume 5 by Marjorie and Sana Takeda. I am so excited to read this one. I've been loving the Monstress series. I've read the first 4 volumes and each and every one of them has blown my mind. They are beautifully and artistically illustrated, but as well as that, I'm just so invested in the story and the characters at this point. And the way that Volume 4 ended had me so excited to get to Volume 5, and I'm really going to be reading this one soon because I need to know what's going to happen next in this story. After that, I finally closed my Amazon affiliates account. I haven't been promoting my affiliates for a long time. I never used them. However, I still regularly got the emails, and I finally closed down my Book Depository affiliates account and also my Amazon affiliates account, but I had made some money, and so I got myself some books with that money. The first one that I got was The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. I read the 5th season 2 months ago and it rocked my world. It was absolutely fantastic. Everyone should read that fantasy series. The first one is set in this world where orogeny exists, which are people who have the ability to make earthquakes and cess through the earth and do different things that have to do with earth. But these are the people that are oppressed in this world, and the storyline follows certain characters who have this gift, and what ends up happening in this world is very complicated. It all comes together so well, and it was just such a good first book in a series that I cannot wait to read the second one. Basically, with my money I got a lot of sequels that I'm excited about, because I also got Before the Coffee Gets Cold, Tales from the Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, and this one is the second book in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series, and the first one is about this cafe, and when you go there you can time travel if you sit in a certain position. And it was such an emotional and beautiful and short book that I wanted to read more from this series in this world. So I got the second one. Last but not least, I got Life is Sweet by Cathy Cassidy, and this is not really a book in a series, but it sort of is. Last year I reread and finished reading for the first time the Chocolate Box Girls series by Cathy Cassidy, which is a middle grade series about these two families that come together to form one family. One is a single father with a daughter, and the other is a divorced mother with 4 daughters, and yeah, the parents fall in love and they decide they're going to combine their households and combine their families, but it's not that easy. It takes a while for them to accept each other as a family, but also each of the girls has something that they are working through, and we follow, each book in the series follows one of those children and what's going on in their lives, but it also in a group or like in a series way talks through the divorce and their relationship, and oh my gosh, I just loved that series. And then I found out Life is Sweet exists, which is a short story collection with short stories that each one follows one of the secondary characters. So if any of the sisters had boyfriends, maybe the boyfriends get a short story, or if they've had a best friend, the best friend gets a short story. And of course, I just wanted it as soon as I learned of its existence. So the next 5 books come from somebody on Hauling Books on Twitter, and sending them my way. So thank you, Karis, for that, because I'm excited for a lot of these books. The first one I am very, very excited for, and that is The Long Way to a Small and Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. It's about time that I got the first one in the series and read it for myself. I forgot what the synopsis is about, but everybody loves it. It's science fiction. I've heard that it's got some LGBT plus characters in it and that it's amazing. So I shall see if I also find it amazing. The next book I got is Juliet Takes a Breath by Gabby Rivera. I also think it's an LGBT plus book and it's a young adult contemporary. Don't know too much more, but I am looking forward to it. I've been enjoying young adult contemporary a lot again lately, so hopefully this will hit the spot. Speaking of young adult contemporary, I got Opposite of Always by Justin A. Reynolds. In this one, we follow Jack and he meets Kate and they have a romantic relationship, and then Kate dies, but he travels back in time and he gets to try and do things differently to save her, but of course that has consequences. You know, you can't change the past without there being consequences, and it's about working through what you can and cannot do to save people that you love. So that's what this one is about, and that sounds like it's going to be a deeper story than I expected. And then I also got Yes, No, Maybe So by Becky Albertalli and Aisha Saeed. And I mostly just read everything by Becky Albertalli for some reason. So that's why I was initially interested in this one. I've heard good things about Aisha Saeed's writing too, so I got it. And then last but not least, I picked up I Am Thunder and Won't Keep Quiet by Mohammed Khan, and this one is about a girl who is used to feeling invisible in school, so she is surprised when the hottest guy suddenly takes an interest in her and they get together. But this guy has a secret, and it's up to the main character to decide whether she wants to speak up and fight for what she believes in, or if she wants to keep quiet but betray her morals and her heart. So it seems like a difficult decision, and I'm curious to see what it is that she wants to comment on or keep to herself. Then we have some review copies. Oh, I've been so bad lately, but look at this. This is Defy the Night by Brigid, Kemmerer, and I am beyond excited. I absolutely loved A Curse So Dark and Lonely and its sequel by Brigid, Kemmerer, and when I heard about Defy the Night, I just knew I wanted to read it straight away. So to me, this one sounds like a female Robin Hood retelling, and in this one, we are following our main character in a world where there is a king, and the king rules with an iron fist. He is very, very strict. And there is a plague going on in this kingdom, and only the people who are rich can afford the medicine that it takes to heal them, and everybody else who is poor, who is a peasant, is dying from this plague. And our main character, she takes it upon herself to steal medicine from the rich and give it to the poor people. And she realizes that in order for there to truly be equality and justice within the kingdom, she might need to assassinate the king. And that is what the story is about, and it sounds fantastic, and I am so excited to read this book. We've got some books from Book Break which I'm equally excited for. The first one is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. Everyone has been talking about TJ Klune's books recently, and I'm so excited to finally get to read one for myself. We follow Wallace, and he meets his own Reaper at a funeral, and he knows that he's dead. He is dead, but instead of being led to the afterlife, he is led to this peculiar little tea shop where he makes friends with all the people there, and he feels wonderfully at home. But then he is told he only has 7 more days until he must pass into the afterlife. So he decides he's going to make the most and live the best that he can of those 7 days he has left in that peculiar tea shop. And I think it's about regrets and things that he didn't get to do in real life that he's going to try and do now. And it sounds like it's going to be beautiful, but also a little bit sad as well. The Woods Are Always Watching by Stephanie Perkins, and this is one of her dark thriller kind of books. And I've read Stephanie Perkins as I was growing up as a teenager. I was a big fan of the Anne and the French Kiss series and all that jazz. I was that kind of teenager. So I'm looking forward to trying some of her darker books now and seeing what they are like. It's about these 2 friends who have been outsiders at school, but at least they had each other, so they truly did not mind. But now university is impending, so they decide to go on a 3-day hike through the woods together as one of their last hurrahs. But as they hike deeper into the woods, they end up hiking their way right into a deadly nightmare. And it's about what happens while they are in those woods. The Wild Fogs of Yemen by Threa, Almontaser, and this one is a poetry collection which has to do with culture and identity, with being a Muslim woman after 9/11 and so much more. And the themes just sound like right up my alley for poetry that I tend to like when it comes to culture, when it comes to identity, when it comes to religion. But I also think, glancing through the poems, that the imagery and the format is going to be quite my style when it comes to poetry. So I'm really looking forward to reading this one. It's got a beautiful cover, and you know me in poetry, we just go hand in hand. I tend to enjoy reading it, and I'm looking forward to some nice afternoons with some poetry in them. And then we have Objects of Desire by Clare Sestanovich. And this one is a short story collection, and in each one of them we follow women who are in their 20s to 30s, or the brisk of where anything can happen, and these short stories focus on desire and deep attraction, which sounds a bit vague, sounds a bit open, but there's so much possibility that can be delved into there, and I'm curious to see where the author chooses to go with it. Then we have a memoir by David Harewood. I'm really into reading non-fiction memoirs at the moment, and this one is called Maybe I Don't Belong Here. And this one is about his experiences as a Black British man, being Black, being British, but also it has a distinct focus on mental health and his experiences with mental health that have not gone too well. And it's balancing Black mental health, and I think that's something that's very important to talk about, especially when it comes to Britain in particular and looking at the UK. So I'm very much interested to see what this author has to say. We have Grown, a celebration of Black British girlhood that will empower a generation by Melissa Cummings-Quarry and Natalie A. Carter. So if you were a teenager, you might have read those books when you were growing up about puberty, about teenagerhood, about things like sex and growing up and dating, but also about school and education and its importance and how to look after your body, all of those things. But this one sounds unique to me because it's made with Black girls in mind, and I did read my fair share of those books when I was a teenager. I remember doing that and learning about periods and all of that stuff through these kind of books. But I really like the sound of there being one that's focused on Black girlhood, and when David K reached out to me with his memoir called Prism, I was very, very interested in reading it. So David is disabled, he's a wheelchair user, and he has Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and it's about his experience going to university and kissing a girl for the first time and all of these things to do with his life and living it while disabled. And I think it's going to be a very enlightening story where I can learn from it, but also one that I think a lot of other people can learn from. How to Think Like Shakespeare by Scott Newstock. And from what I understand, it had Shakespeare in the title, I was already sold. But this one is looking at thinking and ways of thinking. So it's very much focused on thinking, on psychology in that element, but at the same time, it's drawing from Shakespeare's plays and Shakespeare's works to figure out how we should be thinking about different things, which I think, see what I did there, I think that's a very unique way to look at the mind and to look at our thought processes. The next section of this haul is books from my grandmother. So these used to be my mum's, then they became my grandmother's, and now I'm gonna read them. Gather in My Name by Maya Angelou, and this is the second book in her memoir series. She's had so much in her life, her memoirs are in a series. And I read the first one, which is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and I also read Letters to My Daughter, which fits in somewhere later in the series, but this is actually the second one, which follows her young adult life, I believe, and I am looking forward to reading it because this woman has been through an awful lot, and the way she writes about it is utterly fascinating but also utterly moving. And then another memoir actually is I Survived by Victoria Cilliers, and my mum bought this book and read it herself because she saw about it on the news, and it's about this woman who married her husband, and then later on her husband tried to kill her and stage it as an accident, but she survived. I survived, and she's telling her story about what it was like, that experience, but also what she did next after she realized that her husband had tried to murder her. The last stack of books are from my new job. I've started working for Canongate as a sales and campaigns assistant, doing marketing, publicity and sales. I love it. I love it there. Everyone's really nice, and all of my thoughts in this channel will be my own on these books. So don't worry about that. My reviews won't be compromised in any which way, but I got quite a few books. The first one I got is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This is a book that has taken BookTube by storm, that seems to have taken everywhere by storm, and I've read some Matt Haig before. I know that this one focuses on depression and mental health, and I'm very curious to see what I will make of it myself, because I've been hearing everybody else's reviews and now I am very intrigued. Miss Death, Mrs. Death by Selena Godden, and this one is about Death, who is fed up of her job. She's been doing it for ages, silent and unseen, and Death is actually, Miss Death is a black woman who is just invisible to everyone else as she does her own work, but she decides she is going to write her stories and tell her tales. And that's what Miss Death, Mrs. Death is about. Again, I've just heard such positive reviews on BookTube and around me, and I'm so curious to read it for myself. The Startup Wife by Tamima Anam, and this one is about this wife who runs a startup with her husband, and it gets to become very successful, but as her business grows and grows, she realizes that she's being ignored in board meetings, and decisions that are important are being made without her. So it's talking about sexism within the business industry and within the workplace, but also how this complicates things for her relationship and also makes her think about her womanhood in different ways. An electric cover as well. Motherhood, Otherhood by Pragya Agrawal, and this one I got because I feel like it's going to be such an interesting companion to a memoir that I read early this year called Brown Baby by Nikesh Shukla. Motherhood is kind of a companion in a different way to that one, because Brown Baby is all about the struggle of being an father and also like a British Indian father, and this one talks about motherhood and what it's like being a mother to a child, and it's a memoir all about that, and also about how motherhood can be quite othering. And I just feel like, having read a book about fatherhood, it would be so interesting to read a memoir that has to do with motherhood and to think about them both in conjunction with each other. So that's why I picked up this one, The Coward by Jared McGuinness. And as soon as I heard about this one being by a disabled author and featuring a disabled character, especially both wheelchair users, I was very interested in reading this one. I've been on the hunt for more wheelchair fiction, so characters that use a wheelchair, and it's also by a wheelchair user author. If you've got recommendations, leave them for me in the comments, because I'm really looking for more of those. And this one is a literary fiction where we follow a main character who is in an accident, and after the accident he then needs to use a wheelchair. And after this crash, after the accident, he decides that he wants to heal some of the broken relationships that he has in his family, in his friendships, in his life. So it's about him coming to terms with his new disability, but also trying to work through some emotional trauma and some emotional experiences that he's had with people around him at the same time. And he needs to stop being a coward and face up to the problems and decisions that he's made in his past. Sounds absolutely fantastic. Fascinated to read this one. Her Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki, and I'm going to start reading this one as soon as I'm done filming. And in this one we follow a young boy, and after the death of his father he starts to realize he can hear voices of all the objects around him, and so these objects are talking to him constantly all the time, and it's quite loud, and he struggles to focus. And as well as that, he's inherited from his father a love of jazz music. And I think all of these things come together in this book. Boy, it's a big book, and I'm looking forward to it because it actually sounds like things that I'm interested in: grief, death, and music. Please let me know in the comment section down below what was the last book that you bought, received, or acquired, or borrowed. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't you forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior!